welcome to the B Team Podcast. I am your host, Josh Safran, with my co-host,
Matt Mars,
and our permanent guest,
Rob Nelson.
We're here every week to talk to you about all things Bentonville, bourbon, and business. The B Team Podcast. Be here. Welcome to the B Team Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Safran, along with my co-host,
Matt Mars,
and my non-shaven permanent guest.
I figured I'd change it up a little bit today, Rob Nelson.
Is this like a no-shave November, or is this just I'm lazy as all heck?
I've never thought about it. It is probably that. No, I mean, it's just
he would have done it on purpose.
It's been a busy week, and it's been cold out, so I was like, I'll let it go for a few days. I'm past that itchy stage, so I almost shaved this morning, but I was like, maybe I'll go a few more days.
Now, what's Angie's take on the beard? Does she like the grizzly bear look, or she's not
sometimes like she'll put up with it for a little bit, and then she's like, okay.
Can we grow it in full? Like, can we do a full beard, you think?
I mean, this is only a few days. So.
Let's get it going.
I'll probably have to come into Jen's. Shout out to Jen's.
Shout out.
And get it cleaned up. Then, it's got some nice lines and maybe some definition.
Because as we're thinking about season 2, maybe one of the things that has to happen is you have to have a beard to be on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Beard, bourbon, Bentonville, booze.
Here we go.
Business. Like maybe we'll just
Bar Cleeta.
Oh, yeah. Perfect segue. I forgot Weisi was here.
I mean, let's get back on track.
Sorry.
Usually it's you, but it's me today.
Look at this. It must be like a holiday miracle. Well, we're every Thursday talking about all things business, Bentonville, and bourbon. And today we have Weisi, the owner of Bar Cleeta and...
The Big Lieutenant.
The Big Lieutenant.
Co-owner.
Co-owner.
Because I have to give my husband credit.
Well,
where it's due.
But the reality is I'm in a business with my wife, and when I say I'm the owner, she beats the living daylights out of me.
Oh, really?
That's not
Is that
true.
Why your knee is broken?
That is why my knee is broken. I've slipped up and said I'm the owner.
You get beat up a lot. First it was Rob, and now it's your wife.
There's a lot of pressure on this job here. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
You okay if we do a pour of George T. Stagg?
Oh. I'm more than okay.
Now, we knew that we had really high-quality people coming into this. Is a really expensive bourbon.
That's why I picked it.
So we're going to pour for you first.
Thank you.
I don't know if I'm going to pour any for Matt, quite honestly.
This is new for you to pour someone else's. Usually you pour yours, and then you just kind of push the bottle away.
I know.
I kind of like the way it's already going on this episode, because it seems like it's pick on Matt Day and leave Rob alone.
Wow, that's a good pour.
Ooh,
that is pretty nice.
That's like a $200 pour.
Yeah.
Is this someone's favorite bourbon? Is this yours, Josh?
No, I promised. Matt brought something good last time.
Okay.
And Rob never brings anything good, ever.
No.
Never.
He brought us in one of those infinities that you dump all the kinds you don't like in. That's what he brought for us one time.
Like a jungle
terrible.
Juice bourbon?
Yeah.
Jungle Juice bourbon. That's exactly what it is.
That's a new one. I haven't heard of that one before.
But we didn't tell Josh, so we told him it was some high-end stuff, but Matt and I were in on it. It was great.
So you made your own blended bourbon.
Just over time. Like I leave it on my bar at home. And, when the bottle gets down to that much, we just throw it in there.
But it's the backwash of like 15 bourbons. It's just so tasty.
Yeah.
Well, it's brown anyway. So
Exactly.
it just tastes like brown.
That's right.
That's not a terrible idea. So cheers.
Cheers,
guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks
for coming.
We still can't believe that you came to the podcast.
I mean, we've been trying to, the three of us have been talking about getting, you on for months.
Nice.
Yeah.
And we all are kind of like making fun of each other.
Yeah.
I finally got you to commit.
Yay. Yeah.
So I got the award.
Yay. You win.
We have to give a little background here.
Yeah.
We're probably on episode like 40, 42. We're almost done with the first season. Mm-hmm. And like 38 of the guests have come from me. And so...
and the rest from me.
And so...
No, Matt's got
anything from you?
They're so off on their numbers.
33 out of the 42.
Okay, maybe 30.
30. And so Matt's done a good job. He's brought in a few. And then every time... And Rob always goes to all the cool new restaurants downtown. He goes, oh, I met the owner. Great. Can you get him on the podcast? Yeah, I'll work on it. And you're the first one of all the owners he's met that has come.
Oh, yay.
Well, sometimes I got to build that relationship and make sure, like, I'm not known as just, the guy who wants to get me on the podcast. I got to make sure, they know it's Rob coming in to love their restaurants.
Well, it was
then I
actually...
worked that in.
It was actually Josh and I were trying to build your morale a little bit. So like I had already talked to Weisi, and I was like, now when Rob comes in, just kind of act like you don't know, but you really already know.
Well, if I understood properly, Carrie was actually going to get her on.
I think
Carrie also mentioned something. Carrie's your best promoter, I think. Yeah,
She's
for sure.
But then I said, Rob, I said, so we're bringing in a fantastic restaurant. We all love going. The food's great. I go, so what food are they going to bring? He goes, yeah, they're not bringing food. I go, Bobby. We're bringing in a restaurant.
I was like, she's moving around childcare to make this happen today, so leave her alone. I'm not putting any pressure on her. It's not the first restaurant that hasn't brought in food, which is fine.
Shout out Mark Hufford and Chick-fil-A.
well,
that was the worst one.
To be fair, though, like we really wanted that salad, is what we were kind of all.
I know.
It's fine.
I hear you.
We'll just have to go there this weekend.
I know.
But you talk about the salad, and it's one of those where you go, it's just a salad, right? You go to a restaurant, and it's like, I'm not really interested in the salad. The salad is amazing.
It is.
So for the guests and the viewers, let's talk. Tell us about the salad, because we keep on saying salad, and Eric's like, what salad?
Exactly. So it is the salad. Well, actually, okay. So we have two salads on right now. The salad that everyone kind of talks about is the wild baby arugula.
Yes.
And this was kind of so my husband, obviously Trey, is the chef. And this was something that we had put on I want to say like a Valentine's Day or New Year's Eve dinner, like many years ago at this point. And it was just so delicious that he and I started really like honing in on eating it all the time. And then he was like, I think this is going to go on the menu. And a lot of times that's kind of how his inspiration comes. It's like he designs something for a specialty menu, whether it's Valentine's Day or New Year's or even our fried chicken dinner that we do every August.
Let's come back to that. Let's come back to that.
Yes. That's a great conversation. So he kind of like takes things that he's already created for these events that works really well and then can kind of migrate to our menu really well and translates from a production standpoint. And the wild baby arugula is one of them. And it's kind of a play on a salad that he used to be kind of familiar with at a restaurant in New York that he worked in for a long time. But I think it's just the simplicity of like the ingredients, which is wild baby arugula. So you already have something kind of spicy and a little bit crunchy, not like your average iceberg lettuce, which I love a good wedge, but you know, doesn't have much flavor. So he does that with sunflower seeds, which gives it a little bit of fat and crunch. Then you have like real Parmesan Reggiano, which we're getting the wheel. He's like pulverizing it essentially into like little crumbs. So we're not talking like the kind that you buy in the store that is like, what's the word? They put stuff in it to like uncoagulate it, you know? So it doesn't kind of taste like cheese. It kind of tastes like chemicals. So this is like real Parm. So that's a huge difference.
There's the Parm guy over here.
You're the Parm guy.
I'm a big Parmesan. Was it, that one or the Pecorino Romano? I love them all.
100%. Yeah. Cheeses in general. So that is big, I think, having that. And then the dressing is kind of like what really pulls it all together. And it's not a difficult dressing, but the components are difficult to kind of get right. So there's rosemary honey in it, which is something that we infuse in-house. That's what we serve with all of our cheeses, which people love. Right. And so that adds like a little bit of the sweetness. And then he does like fresh lemon juice, and then he does like a garlic confit, which is essentially garlic that's been cooked in oil and kind of preserved.
Now, when you look around the room, it looks like we all like to eat. You wouldn't think that the salad,
I know,
for guys like us, would be one of the favorite things on the menu.
I mean, I can't tell you how many people have asked us for a special request. Like, we've had people for a New Year's Eve dinner be like, my wife loves the arugula salad. Can we just add that to the tasting menu? And we're like, sure, that's totally fine with us. It's easy for us to do, but that's a really random request. Great. And then it started to be like, hey, can you guys bottle the dressing for us? Like, can we buy it from you? And we were like, sure. And we started to get asked that all the time. And people would ask us about the recipe for the dressing. Because I think no less than 5 people have come up to me and been like, we've tried to recreate this at home. And it was close. It was close. Even us giving all the ingredients. And I was like, it's not the assembling of all the ingredients. It's the quality of like the specific ingredients that he puts together before you even assemble the salad.
That makes sense.
So that's really the time-consuming part of it. But then we played around with the idea of maybe bottling the salad dressing and
so good.
Maybe selling it.
Yeah.
So,
Are you there yet? Or
I mean,
there's a big retailer in town. I'm sure if you knock on the door and say, hey, can we put this in a few thousand stores?
We know a couple people. I mean, I think we toyed with the idea of that being like the retirement plan, like what a great idea. But CPGs, like consumer packaged goods, are like a very intense industry.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually spoke to this really interesting person who was introduced to me by a chef friend who also went through her own CPG situation, and she owns a restaurant out in Oregon. And she was basically like, keep it local. Like, keep it local. That's your best way to do it. When you get into a broader mass production, like, it just like ups the ante in so many ways that you kind of almost only can focus on that.
Yeah, like Jordan Wright's done that with his Wright's barbecue sauce.
Right,
He's got it in, and it's regional because people in New York wouldn't know what that is.
Right.
And they've done a nice job. So if you want people to rep your brand, I mean, we could always, we could.
It's true. I mean, that's
always do that.
still something we're playing with.
We just need a bottle or two a week, and we can talk about it.
I'm sure Carrie would love that.
No, she would still be like, no, we need to go down there. Our Carrie's secret favorite, ours. I'm not even a tomato guy, and I love the tomato thing.
Oh, yeah.
Is it still going to be on the menu, or is with tomatoes gone?
It's November, so no more tomatoes. But it is something that I think people kind of obsess over in a wonderful way. And it's a really, for those who have not had the tomato salad, it's a very eclectic dish. And I don't think anybody thought that it would take off the way that it has. I think it's,
So good.
and to kind of get into the nitty gritty of the inspiration, it's like, okay, we're in Arkansas. Tomatoes are very much a part of our summer produce. It's very historical in terms of like the food culture around here between like fried green tomatoes and just like fresh ripe tomatoes in the summertime with salt, right? So my husband was like, okay, well, the heirloom tomatoes that we get in the summer are so sweet. They're unlike the tomatoes that we imagine that we get from like a mass produced market during the winter when you see it on a burger and it's like really sad and mealy. Like these are like fruits almost. They are fruits actually, right? And so he was like, well, how do I bring the sour back? So what he did was he created a sour peanut that's kind of inspired by like Chinese peanuts.
So good.
So they're kind of glazed, they're a little bit sweet, a little bit sour, and it brings the kind of like it draws out the kind of like sweetness from the tomato. And then he does, back to Parm, a Parmesan Reggiano fondue that is just like an incredible reduction of like Parm, like a concentrated cheese spread with real Parm.
He's sitting here like Homer Simpson, with the drool coming out, like, oh, you can see.
It's going down my beard.
It's November. That's probably why you're growing this,
exactly.
right? There you go.
Yeah.
And so it's a very strange dish, but we always like to say it's kind of like the combination of our cultures coming together to a certain degree. Like Trey is partially Italian. And
Shout out to the Italians.
Yeah, the Italians. There you go. And my family's Chinese. And so the sour peanuts kind of were a little bit taken from that, side of our family. And then together you have Arkansas, which are the tomatoes.
Yeah. So we have to go, let's go backwards before we go forward. Because the reason this is not a restaurant where the three of us would walk in and I'd order my dinner and it would show up for me. This is a plate sharing type experience, which is very different and unique in the area.
Yes. And that's a good point. I think when we first opened 5.5 years ago, it was difficult for people to accept. We had to explain to everyone it's not a traditional dining experience. You get an appetizer, you get an entree, we don't share. To us, like this is the best way to eat between just me and my husband as a couple. Like that's what we go. We go to restaurants and we say, okay, you order the fish, I'll order the steak, and then we can just trade. And like, and coming from New York, like a shared plates concept isn't like out of the norm. Like it's actually very common. And for us, it's the best way to kind of showcase like a new American cuisine, but also giving people an opportunity to try as many things as possible. And one of the things that like I think was our focus is to really focus on creating like a table where you can have luxurious items and not have to pay a lot of money for it. We've always offered raw oysters that are freshly shucked East and West Coast, we've always had caviar.
Angie loves caviar. My wife.
Yeah. I mean, caviar is an acquired taste, but like once you eat it, like, and you get it, like it's really wonderful. And there's nothing quite like it. And, we get our.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's great. It's easy. It's easier than.
I think my favorite part about your restaurant is we usually go there and we'll just tell the waiter or waitress, we'll be like, we want the salad, we want this, but just surprise us.
But you're ordering a number. To me, it's like I'm not ordering dishes. I'm ordering number. We have 6 people. Just bring out your best 10 dishes.
Yeah.
Just tell me the number of dishes and you figure it out.
It makes you. It
becomes an experience.
Yeah. Number one, you leave and you're not sick because and you leave and you've gotten to try all of these amazing meals that normally you would have had to go to dinner 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
and maybe not like something.
Sure.
Whereas when you're all sharing,
Yeah.
I don't know. I love the sharing. Our family
Same.
shares.
Was it a learning
Yeah.
curve
Like
for
food all
the
the
clientele though? Like
It
for people?
was.
Because I imagine up front early on, wait, I ordered a dish and this is all I'm getting, and how much am I paying?
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. And that's, I think, like you said, it's a learning curve, but it's also something that is our job as the front of house team to kind of like ease people into the water. Like the water's fine. It's okay. Like this is barbecue. Like our Wagyu or 6-day Wagyu brisket that's been on from the very beginning. We always preface and say, like, it's not a big portion. It's 3.5 ounces, but it's Wagyu. So it's rich.
Yeah.
And to think about it, it's a 6-day process to cook it. He brines it for 5 days and then he slow cooks it for 12 hours, lets it rest for 12 hours. It's his version of like a fine dining barbecue.
Yeah, but let's pause on that because the person that's complaining is the one that's going to Doe's, and no offense to Doe's, right?
Yeah.
Which is
And they're getting right? They're getting for $40 a giant piece of meat.
Correct.
And that's what has been expected here over a period of time.
Yeah.
But like New Yorkers, people that have been in big cities, like this is what I expect.
Yeah.
So I'd imagine again, the Doe's consumer who walks in and goes, what am I eating?
Yep.
It's a curve to get them to understand like fine dining, different things, sharing. And every time I walk in, you've done a good job because it's packed.
Yeah. And, like to, I guess, our credit, like we built a lot of, I think, trust, hopefully, with not just the community, but like people who are transplants, people who are visiting, vendors, who are doing business in town. To some degree, like COVID was one of the better things that happened to us from that aspect, which is to say, like, okay, 9 months after we opened, we shut down fully. And then we did takeout family meals for like 2-ish months, which was really fun for us. And it was just enough to get by. We kept all of our staff. We kept them paid.
That's
everything.
awesome.
We were able to receive a loan to help. No, thank God, right? And then once we reopened, it was like a small trickle. So what was interesting is you had all these people who were working here still from home. And because we're not in a big city, you're not as confined. You have a little bit more freedom of like, do you want to go out? Do you feel like it's safe for you? Whatever. And so it allowed a lot of the people who were still working actively, who didn't have anywhere to go, who couldn't fly anywhere, who didn't want to go into bigger cities. Now they can go around town and try the places that maybe they weren't trying before, or maybe they were nervous about. So it was like a way for us to kind of be more introduced to the community, the local community, and, people who maybe grew up in Arkansas slowly. So it was actually a really interesting, like in retrospect, looking at it, like what really happened during COVID. So,
and Josh, you were kind of the one that got us going. So Josh went there and he was like, guys, at Bar Cleeta. He's like,
yeah.
And I mean,
but I remember I had to Paul, you was like,
you
I
did.
just want to let you know.
You did, yeah.
You have to order multiple dishes. Like, you're not going to go.
Yeah.
I had to pre-sell it.
It goes back to, it's an experience. You're not going out to go, stuff yourself on a 40-ounce steak.
Yeah.
It's an experience. It's a great night out. The service is amazing. Your wine list is over the top.
Yes.
You get to try a bunch of different things, and it's about going out and like you said, you're not leaving there where you're like, oh my God, I just ate a 40-ounce steak, but you're full, you're happy, you've had some great wine, a great experience.
Yeah.
Get to see you. I mean, it's
give you a hard time.
That's true.
But we've talked about it on the podcast because you are a traditional, I know my 2 or 3 dishes.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay within my comfort. So for you to go here and be like, just bring me out a bunch of different things, that's not the norm for you.
No.
Well, I think ever since I moved here, I've kind of wakened Matt's experience and broadened the horizons.
That's why I gained 50 pounds when he moved here.
We both did because we'd be out every night. Now it's every other night.
Jeez.
That's a good change.
Yeah.
Well, so go through the top.
Yeah.
You have a new menu for the fall too?
Yes.
So what are the top newer dishes you got?
So there's a new pasta, and much to my husband's chagrin, I think he created something that was like, I call it the pumpkin spice pasta, because this time of year, like pumpkin spice just pops up everywhere. Like the other day I saw pumpkin spice cereal and I literally was like, I can't take it anymore. I can't deal with this flavor. Like, what is pumpkin spice? But I call it that because it's a gemelli pasta. So it's kind of like a little curl, and it's got butternut squash puree kind of like built into the sauce. And then it's got like a brown butter and sage. It's like all the like elements of fall that you want in a dish. And I call it pumpkin spice because it's just like what you think of with fall. And it's on every single table. So that's definitely one of the newer items that he's put on. There is a lamb rib dish that is probably going to get phased out for a pork belly.
Ooh.
pretty soon.
Okay.
I don't want to confirm or deny that, but I think that that's kind of the way to go. There's a broccoli rabe dish. It's not a new dish. We've had it on since like we opened, but it's our winter favorite. Actually, when I was pregnant, I had a really bad first trimester, and that's all I ate. Like every night, I had the broccoli rabe. They would wrap it for me, and then I would take it home, and that was my only meal.
Wow.
So it's a charred broccoli rabe salad. So it's served cold, which broccoli rabe you know most people would eat it like warm as almost like a vegetable on the side. So he's charred it, he's chilled it down. It's in a salad. It's got a romesco sauce, which is like a Spanish bread sauce. It's got piquillo peppers, bread kind of roasted in there, and then it's got some Marcona almonds on top, so you get a little bit of fat too, and then just cheese shaved on top. So it's like that kind of perfect dish where you get all the little elements that you need. And apparently was very healthy for me when I was, carrying my child and couldn't eat anything. So I think about that dish fondly a lot.
Do you get complaints like when you move out of season, like, oh, where's the pasta dish with the pumpkin spice?
Oh, yeah.
And then what do you do? You just, sorry,
we say like, to your point, like about tomatoes, it's like, well,
next year,
40 degrees outside, so there's no tomatoes.
It'll be back, hopefully.
It'll be back, yeah. Well, there's always something to replace it.
But like to me, that's what I love about your restaurant is like to a certain point, you look forward to the new menu because you want to try new things and the different creations and those favorites will eventually come back.
Yeah,
full circle
if they're successful, for sure.
It's like the McRib. It's like, hey, the McRib is back. Go to McDonald's.
I mean, I guess.
You know what I'm saying?
Not really, but maybe.
I mean, that's a marketing genius on behalf of McDonald's.
Marketing, it's back.
Yeah.
I mean, McRib. I like McRibs, and I don't want to eat it every day, but when you when you see that it's back, you're like, why? Where did it go? Why is it anywhere? Like, McDonald's is not a seasonal restaurant. Yeah, like why?
You're a McRib fan, right?
Oh, I used to eat the McRib back in the day.
I don't know if it was fake news or not, but I heard the other day that McDonald's is actually selling, like, you could buy the McRib sauce in a half gallon for Christmas.
Holy crap.
That's interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know why I said that, but it was just, I heard talking about McRib. I want to add some value
you
to
want
the conversation.
You wanted Josh to be able to do some editing because everything's been going
that'll
so
definitely get edited.
Speaking of the holidays, so the menu, and then are you guys doing anything for like holiday parties, Christmas, New Year's?
Yeah.
Anything going on over there with you guys?
So we traditionally do a New Year's Eve dinner. It's usually a 5-course tasting menu, and we'll do like an optional wine pairing. We usually do that for like the bigger holidays like Valentine's Day. We'll usually do like a winemaker dinner throughout the year. And then we also have our fried chicken, champagne, and caviar dinner in August.
I keep hearing about this fried chicken. We got to come back to that.
Yeah, I know. We do need to come back to that. But yeah, New Year's Eve, it's going to be fun. It's usually a little bit more traditional of a menu because when we think about like New Year's Eve, the time of year, like what people want to eat, like I think last year he did something like a steakhouse kind of dinner.
Ooh.
So I think there was like a short rib with like potatoes and broccoli. Like it just was like a very traditional, like all-American kind of fine dining version of like a winter's meal.
Do you still have seats open?
We haven't released tickets yet. So yeah.
Okay.
So it's a price fixed menu?
It's usually fixed. Yes. And we usually can do it without the pairing. If someone's like, hey, I only drink cocktails or I only like beer or I don't drink, like New Year's Eve is the one time that we kind of like are flexible with that.
So can you book a table for 6 now and put it on Bobby's tab?
I can.
Okay.
On your tab, right?
New Year's.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you
Put it
gonna
on
be
his
here?
tab.
We might be.
Yeah.
I'll know in the next few days.
But either way.
He's a big global traveler. He's like in Australia, and Jamaica, and
No.
Australia.
Bahamas. He's all over the place.
I've never been to Australia, so that's pretty much.
We should book Valentine's Day too, because that's going to be around
It's
the
very
corner.
romantic.
before
Yeah.
I want to go back
For the three of you.
for the three of us.
And our wives.
You're like, could we get 2-3 top tables? We want it to be fun for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. You would be surprised at how many people dine together, like with couples, on Valentine's Day.
No,
it's fun.
We all three of us,
If you keep that beard, I would just dine with you.
Come on.
It's very sexy.
Let's go.
We're not going to edit that out. Very sexy.
So what brought you guys to Bentonville? I want to hear the story a little bit.
So my husband's from here. Went to Bentonville High School. Was born grew up in Bella Vista. His family has like a long history of being in Arkansas from both sides, his mom and his dad. Most people were from, I think, eastern Arkansas, so like near the Delta. And then obviously they all moved up here, I think like in the 60s and 70s. They were real estate developers, actually. So he's got like very, very long roots here. And so we met in New York, actually. He was cooking at Kraft at the time, which is Tom Colicchio's restaurant.
Well, my wife loves that place.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's
Loves.
great. It's a standard, in New York. I think it's been there for like.
We can't get Matt to go to New York with us. He doesn't want to go.
He will.
Oh.
I've been there.
Yeah, but you're not a big fan.
No, for 2 or 3 days I like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just like to see grass and trees. And things.
Yeah, you can go to the park.
But for 2 or 3 days, I see
Yeah.
why. Well, I found out why that was so coveted to them.
Yeah.
Because when you're there, you go there and you're like, oh, grass is like.
Yeah, it's an urban jungle for sure. Yeah, New York is tough. Like if you don't have someone kind of like holding your hand, you can be very overwhelmed, and you can find yourself.
So much to do.
There's so much to do, and you can find yourself in a tourist trap. Like you can find yourself stuck in Times Square or going to the Statue of Liberty, and you're like, why did you?
Yeah,
do
I
that?
would love to get Matt down on the subway and throw him on a ticket and like run and say,
Oh,
figure it out.
geez.
Come find us. That would be amazing.
That's mean.
Oh, we
That's
rode
really
the subway
mean.
when
You
we
did?
were there
Oh, good.
because I'm cheap. we went out to I think we went out like to the Bronx to my landscaper grew up there, and he's like, you got to go to my best
Hold on,
friend's
your
restaurant.
landscaper grew up in the
Zito.
Bronx,
Yeah,
where there's
Zito.
no grass.
No. So Zito, his buddy owns a restaurant out there, and he's like, you got to go to his restaurant.
It's probably in Arthur Avenue or something like that.
So we go. It's like the last stop about on the subway, and when we were getting ready to leave, his buddy was like, "Hey, you're not taking the subway back, Matt." He's like, "I got a car out there for you."
Late at night, the last stop on that subway in the Bronx. Oh, God bless.
I know. I mean,
But it's pretty up there.
Yeah, it is really pretty. I mean, like I feel like before COVID, it was actually pretty safe. Like, I worked in the industry late nights. I would take the subway at 2, 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And I never really felt unsafe. I think COVID's changed some things.
Yeah.
Hopefully, actually, we're going in like 3 weeks. We're watching the Hogs play at Madison Square Garden.
That'll be
I
fun.
think they're playing Michigan.
We saw Eric Church and someone else when we were up there.
Oh, really?
And that was what I think was floored me about New York is there's so much at your fingertips. Like, so we were up there and we were eating, and of course, and we heard someone talking about Eric Church, and we're like, where are they playing? And they're like, he's playing Madison Square Garden. And we're like, so we get on and get tickets. And then we're walking down there and we see where Kevin James is doing a stand-up comedy. I'm like, that's my other favorite person. We went there and like at that one event, Ben Stiller's dad was there, who was the dad on
Jerry
the
Stiller,
show.
rest in peace.
Yep. So Jerry was in the crowd, and Kevin James had him stand up, and he's
very
like,
cool.
"This is my day." It was cool.
That's cute.
But it was just neat to see, like, here you plan things out, and it comes and goes. But there's so many things there that it's like you said, you
It's
can just get
overwhelming.
over.
Yeah, it's
Like,
overwhelming.
You could be doing something every night.
Yeah.
That here might only come once a year if you're lucky.
Well, you kind of have to. When you live in New York City, you live in like a 200 square foot apartment.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, if you're lucky, I guess. And you're like, what do? We just need to get out of the house. Like Trey and I actually shared a studio apartment, and it was like a big studio, but it was still a studio apartment. And the only time you could really be alone is to be in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And like, if you think about that, like,
You don't want to be in the bathroom.
Trey's like, Weisi goes to the bathroom all the time.
I think he would say the same about himself too. But it's crazy. Like we lived there for I think like 5 years, and never felt like the real struggle of like, oh, this is too much, And then we moved to LA, and we had a 1-bedroom. We were like, oh my God, 2 different TVs. Like we don't have to agree on what to watch. Like you watch in there, I watch in here. Great. And then we migrated to like a 3-bedroom house, and now it's like, I don't know where we gained all this stuff. I don't know how we lived in 300 square feet.
Fast.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Our son's like taken over our house completely. Like I step on cars everywhere, just Matchbox cars everywhere. But yeah, so like, we met in New York, and I think he always had this dream of opening a restaurant. And I think the goal was always to kind of come back to his hometown and to kind of like, show everyone like what he's learned and kind of like what he wants to bring back to the community. And then we moved to LA for a year, and we didn't last very long. We didn't do very like great research on what it would cost to like open a small business. And California is not the best place for that. And especially now with COVID, like things have even changed more. And so at the time we were like, oh my gosh, let's just go back to Arkansas. Like we're going to be early for what we want to do.
And you had visited, you had been here.
Yeah. I had been coming back between like friends' weddings, Christmas, like we would come back maybe 2-3 times a year. So we watched the growth happen.
Right.
Like his story is always like, we're driving on 49 on the highway near Rogers, and we're like, oh, they're building something. It's the AMP. And literally the next time we came back, which is like 6 months later, there was a concert on.
Yeah.
And it was like someone big, like Janet Jackson. You know, we were just like,
Nasty
whoa.
boy. Nasty.
I mean, I made him buy me tickets to a Creed concert because I loved Creed in high school, and I'm not afraid to say that out loud anymore.
Can you take me?
Oh, here we go.
high?
Here we go. I didn't hear that from him for like 3 months. It was the most crowded I've ever seen the amp. Like there like the lawn was standing room. Like you could not sit down, like how crowded it was. And we were like marveling at the fact that there were this many people in our community, number one, that liked Creed. And also like just that they were all gathered on a Tuesday night in Rogers. And, you know, people come from Tulsa, people come from like markets around us, but it's like this area is just crazy. It's Disneyland. It's unlike any other place in America, I think.
It's becoming the worst kept secret because people are just coming here so fast.
Yeah.
Like the traffic now is out of control. I sat yesterday coming down Rainbow Road. It was like the traffic light was like 30 cars deep on a one lane, and I just drive down that road in 2 minutes.
Well, I mean, if you just look at what's going on downtown over, say, the last 3 years, even last 2 years, I mean, it's got to be great for your business.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's more people downtown now than ever. And I mean, obviously, you highly recommend a reservation as well, too.
Yeah. I mean, we're a small restaurant, you know, at the end of the day. So we recommend a reservation anytime just so we can prepare because we never know. I was just saying, like, you know, it's interesting, like Bentonville, I think takes up about 10% of my daily conversation, if not more. And it doesn't matter like who I'm talking to, it's just anybody. And Bentonville as like a concept, as a city just kind of comes up. And I was talking to a table, I think just last night when they were like, wow, you guys are really busy like for a Wednesday. And they're like, why are you so busy? And I was like, I have no idea. I have no idea.
Yeah.